I'm not eating. Yeah. I know, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everyone to the May 13th Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Let's start with introductions in the room. I'm Dana Trey with the Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authorities, and I'll pass it to Chris.
Chris Barney, Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authorities.
Rachel Eid, Santa Rosa City Bus.
Kathleen Sullivan, Marin Transit.
Emily Betts, Sonoma County Transit.
Maria Arce, Petaluma Transit.
Zoe Unruh, Smart.
And in the back.
Chris Cohn, SCTCA.
Thank you. And then online, let's start with Jacob.
Jacob Brown, Golden Gate.
Yeah. And Camille.
Hi, Mimi Sullivan, with Petaluma Transit.
Great, thank you. Oh, wait.
There's a few more people.
We do have more people. Thank you.
I'm trying to see if these ones are actually on your committee. Charles Reed.
Jessica is.
I just promoted her. She's moving over.
The others are not. Oh, yeah. Actually, if you could promote Hugo.
Okay.
And Adam. All right, for so those of you just joining online, let's see, I'll actually just point to specific people. Jessica, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Jessica Sandoval, Golden Gate.
And Adam.
Adam Garcia, SCTCA.
Right. And then also online, we have Charles Reed, Dan Bell, and Hugo Castro, who I believe is with Amtrak Gold Runner.
Any committee members that are participating by SB 707 need to keep their cameras on. And we need to know if there's anybody 18 or over in the room with them.
There's not.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe Golden Gate's the only member that's only online. All right. With that, let's go ahead and I'll ask for public comment on items not on the agenda. And those of you online, if you do have public comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Not seeing any. So moving along. Item number 3, approval of the meeting notes from April 8th. Does anybody have any comments or corrections to the notes?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any objections? Okay, then that.
Could you just repeat the names for me, please?
Oh, yes.
I can catch it. Oh, there we go.
For the motion.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to regional planning items. We have a brief data request for transit amenities data from Adam.
Good morning, everyone. As probably all of you know, Sonoma County Transit is undergoing a strategic plan. And so they've asked SCTCA for some minor data support. And so one of the items on the list that we thought we could bring to you is a GIS related request for transit stop amenities. So is there a GIS shapefile that you might have on hand that would include shelters, benches, lights? I don't think anybody has vending machines. I don't know any other things that people might have associated with kind of a transit amenity stop. But I'll turn it over to Sonoma County Transit if you want to provide any more kind of context. But that's kind of our understanding of the request.
Okay, sorry, I didn't have any.
And if there is no,
It's been a while since we talked about this, so let me.
yeah, nothing
This
to add, then
request
that's,
that came to you from Stephen from the consultant, is that right? And it was-
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I think I'll just say that what Sonoma County Transit has is an Excel file. We don't have GIS files. And so it could be that our consultant is making a GIS file. I bet they are. So maybe if other people have Excel-based database tile, that could feed into a new layer that's created. I'm not sure. So sorry, I don't really fully understand the scope, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the context is trying to understand, yeah, how to coordinate some different route alignments in coordination where existing amenities exist. So one of them, yeah, was kind of transit stops. But
Yeah.
bike parking was another one, for instance, that we brought to the CB
Okay, yeah, so
So-
I think they're trying to create files, so they're asking what you have already, right? And so that I don't think that they're not looking to you to create anything for them.
No, just kind of a check-in. Does any, yeah, in Excel, if there is an Excel or some inventory of stops that they could start to work with, maybe to create kind of a countywide file. That, I guess, could be my assumption of what could be the end product. But if you don't have anything on hand, then, then no need to go out of your way to create anything either, I think is also true as well. But
We have an inventory and I think it even has Latin long and I haven't looked at it in a while, so I'll check in on that. But we have something and it should be pretty up to date. So we'll get back to you.
okay, great. Thank you.
As for Petaluma Transit, we have our planner on the line, but she is saying, yes, we have a GIS map that's been updated last year with amenities. So if we need to share it and then maybe get an alignment, that would be awesome.
Okay, perfect. That's wonderful. Great news.
We'll have her send it out to you.
Yeah, if you could send it directly to me, that would be great. I'll throw my email in the chat. All right, and I think that should be it then.
All right, thank you. So the next item is the final comprehensive transportation plan. It's gonna share a presentation on this.
Sounds good. Let me go ahead and get that up here. Yeah, I can, Dawn. Fine. Start. Well, good morning, everyone. I'll be talking about our final CTP. So I was here a couple months ago talking about the findings from the draft CTP. And the final document is complete. It's just going through final design right now. So that'll be released at our June board meeting. So we'll have a link in the agenda packet for that document. So today I'll be talking about the different comments we received on the draft and the changes we made to the draft that have made it into the final. So as a reminder, here's just a look at the different tracks that we were working on as part of our CTP update. We kicked things off in the summer of 2024. We were doing public outreach and engagement the entire time and included an online survey and tabling and workshops, things like that. So that ran through March 23rd, where we closed comments on the draft CTP. So we also did a little work on our vision and goals. So we kept those current with our currently adopted CTP. We didn't change those. I'll run through those very briefly, I think in the next slide. So we did a quick check-in on those and did a progress report on how we're doing in each of those goal areas early on in the update process. We also collected data and conducted a performance assessment. So used our travel model and other tools to see how the CTP projects and recommendations would help us make progress in achieving our vision and goals. So we wrapped that up in 2025. A big piece that we worked on early and throughout the entire process was the call for projects. So thank you so much for the submissions for that. So we have some very visionary and innovative projects that you all have added to the project list this time around. So it's great to see those in there and to be really thinking about how we can make changes in the future. So in conjunction with that, the SCTCA funding program cycle 2 is ongoing. So we're scoring those. I see I need to change the, have a typo there. So we'll get that updated. So we're scoring those projects this time. So one thing we'll be doing after we release the final CTP is looking at the recommendations for the short-term funding. That is the result of that funding program cycle 2 process and releasing a 10-year implementation plan. So the CTP looks out to 2050. So it's a long-range planning document. We also want to look at what we can do in the next 5 to 10 years. To move towards achieving our vision. And then finally, we've worked on a draft CTP and final CTP. So the draft was released in January. We took comments on that through the end of March, and then we'll be releasing the final CTP in early June. So just a reminder, here are our vision and goals. So the vision is really focused on connecting people with where they want to go, and also moving towards a zero emissions transportation network, and also really focusing on safety, equity, and quality of life. So in order to get there, we've identified 4 different goals. One, again, focusing on connections and making sure our transportation system is reliable and works for people on a day-to-day basis. Also very important that the transportation system is safe and well-maintained. So that's across all modes. This third goal, we worked with our board as part of our last CTP to add this in. And, you know, our county is very diverse. We have more urbanized areas and very rural areas. So it's important to have different community-oriented and place-based projects and policies in the plan as well that meet the needs of people in the different types of communities we live in the county. And then finally, we are endeavoring to move towards a zero emissions transportation system in Sonoma County. So, well, moving on to the comments we received on the draft CTP, we received around 50 comments from our board of directors, from the public, and through different workshops and advisory committees. So I'll just be covering kind of the high level themes that we heard through different venues. So starting off with our board of directors, the 3 areas we received a lot of comments from them on were electric mobility devices, you know, safety usage, and a lot of the, you know, it's very ambiguous on what the rules are right now. So there's a lot of interest to identify what's what and coordinate on safety and regulations for those types of devices. And there's a recognition that there are a lot of opportunities there, but there are a lot of issues and complications to work out along the way. So traffic calming and speed management were also very popular. So that's very closely tied to safety and making sure that people can walk, bike, and get around safely and easily out of cars in our community. So another theme from our board, and Highway 37 was an interest point as well. So who's using it and what are the plans for the future? So moving on to different themes we heard about from the public and advisory committees. We heard broad support for the CTP vision and goals, but there were Some questions about the feasibility of meeting some of the goals, our ability to meet those goals and make progress in those areas, and what we need to be doing to get there. The plan is also pretty long and pretty dense in points. So it's over 100 pages. So there's a desire to make that more concise and shorter in the future. So I think in next planning cycles, we'll consider doing that and moving a lot of the reference material that we usually keep in the plan to the appendices. So we go back and forth on that. We use those reference sections all the time on staff, and know other local staff do too. So it's kind of a balancing act of, if you put it in the appendices, it's kind of hidden in the back. So we'll try and streamline things a little bit going forward. There was also a call for more action. So there's a lot of background information and the projects and things like that in the plan. And, there's a desire to have more, do this, do that type recommendations. So we've added a little bit of that to the final. A lot of support for improving safety, traffic calming, and speed limit reduction. So we're already leaning into that. So it's good to hear their support for that. We heard a lot of support for transit improvements and completing our active transportation network. So there's a pretty significant focus on transit improvements in the plan and other parallel planning efforts. So it's good to hear their support for that. There are also concerns with congestion in major travel corridors and road condition. And then again, this is kind of in line with that action-oriented approach. Is there's desire for clearer GHG reduction focus. We've done a lot of that. And then interest in emerging technologies like drone deliveries and things like that. So electrification. So we've added a little more content there. So the final addressed most of these concerns. We also added a set of recommendations for future planning cycles in the CDP as well. So, some of these we couldn't really address as part of this plan, but we hope to dig into those more in the future. So just a little more detail on some of these. I mentioned our board. We also heard this from the public as well. Concerns about e-device safety and coordination. There's a lot of concern about e-bikes versus e-motos, scooters, how to clarify those. So we added additional content in the plan covering some of that information, and added recommendations to coordinate on education, improving safety, aligning those municipal codes that kind of provide rules on how to use these different devices. And one thing that our board brought up was, having better data is really important as well. So a lot of the crash data that's attributed to e-bikes is actually e-motos and things like that. So we need to do a better job of knowing what types of devices are actually involved in some of these crashes. So added some recommendations to the plan there. So as I said, in the final, we added more detail in the plan covering these types of issues, and added recommendations to coordinate on policy development and data collection. So moving on to traffic calming and speed management. So our board requested that we cover in more detail best practices, policies, and resources for speed reduction. And there was a lot of discussion about consistency and speed limits between rural and incorporated areas. So once you cross the jurisdictional boundary, having that be consistent, right? So you're not going from one speed limit and then it's 20 miles different as you cross the border. So there's interest at the policymaker level to do that. So we added additional information on all of these types of efforts in the plan. So including a lot of references to outside resources that jurisdictions can use. We also have a speed limit reduction guide that we produced as part of our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So just highlighted some of this information, provided additional materials that can be helpful, and then added recommendations to coordinate on speed limits. And then finally, the other big topic that our board kind of leaned into was Highway 37. So we already had quite a bit of information on this in the plan, and there's a lot of information out there, but we just collected some of the additional information that we have in other resources into the plan, so it's there and easily accessible. And we included information from, we had an origin and destination study and a lot of other corridor studies from the Highway 37 corridor that we incorporated into the plan. So yeah, more information there. So digging into a few of the public and advisory committee comments very briefly, I'll try and move through these quickly. So, you know, I mentioned that there was support for the vision and goals, but there are questions about our ability to actually meet those goals and make progress. And the two major concerns were that we aren't doing enough to reduce transportation-related GHG emissions. And then on the other side, focusing on GHG reduction distracts us from improving our roads. So kind of two different sides. So yeah.
That's about right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're doing things in both areas, right? We have a pretty major focus on GHG reduction in the plan, in the project list, in our related planning efforts. So we're doing a lot there. And we'll continue to try and amp that up in coming years to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're also doing a lot to preserve roadway quality. So every jurisdiction in the county has a pretty major pavement maintenance project in the CTP that covers maintaining roads, filling potholes, and things like that. And a whole category of the Go Sonoma sales tax measure is associated with improving road condition. So we're trying to meet these diverse needs and concerns. So with the realization that we can always do more. So the next major comment area was, you know, that desire for a shorter plan and focusing more on action. So we were able to reformat our implementation chapter to really highlight recommended actions by each of those goals. So before we just had a list of recommendations, so we were able to break those out by what we can do to reduce GHG emissions or make things safer or more connected. So that helps kind of highlight more action that we can be taking. And then we, you know, recommended looking at shifting things around for future CTPs, you know, having larger appendices, referencing other plans. So it's a balancing act, because if we don't have much in the plan, people ask for it, we add too much, it's too much. So yeah, we'll try and evaluate the best balance there. Again, there's a lot of support for improving safety, traffic calming, speed limit reduction, and again, coordination on those electric mobility devices. So we've heard that from the public and the board, a pretty popular theme and topic that we're hearing a lot about. So we added, as I mentioned before, we added more resources for traffic calming and speed limit reduction, and added a lot on electrification into the body of the plan. So there's more reference material there. And we also tried to highlight some of our other related plans that really dig into this in more detail, like active transportation plans, our Vision Zero action plan, and other local planning documents and resources. So next, we received interest in improved transit reliability, frequency, integration, smart expansion, and really completing our active transportation network. So everywhere we went, we heard a lot about how people want to use transit and want to have it be better, but we also heard a lot of positive things about the transit system as well. So it was kind of both. It was nice to hear something, you know, good things as well. You know, we tabled out at the transit mall at one point, and there were a few people that said how nice the drivers were, right, and how clean the buses were. So it was nice to have some positive feedback as well. So based on this feedback, we tried to highlight all of the big and great projects in the CTP that are focused on transit. So a lot of really innovative and visionary things in there that we can continue to work on. And we also try to really point out and highlight all of the work that's going on in the transit integration realm right now. So a lot of action happening right now. And also, we have a pretty big discussion on first last mile improvements and strategies and building out our active transportation network. So Dana's done a lot of writing, Dana and Steph, on a very big chapter in the CTP covering a lot of these topics. So concerns with congestion. So we heard this in our online survey and also during the public comment period. So we include major improvement projects in Highway 37 and the Highway 12 corridors, and you know, a pretty significant portion of roadway related projects are really focused on reducing travel demand and congestion. And then finally, we received requests for clear GHG reduction strategies, talking more about EV infrastructure, concerns about grid capacity, right? Like, can our grid support all this electrification? You know, there's a lot of interest in freight, shifting freight to rail, shipping that to electric trucks, things like that. And there's some excitement and trepidation about emerging technologies too, right? Like autonomous vehicles and things like that. So we're watching that, and we included some discussions of that. So we added additional content to the plan, and we have a whole appendix focused on GHG reducing actions specifically to kind of point towards the different actions we can be taking to do that, in addition to projects in the project list. So I mentioned we will be putting together a near-term implementation plan as well. So the final CTP, as I said, is looking out to 25 years. We really want to look at what we can do in the next 5 to 10. So we'll be looking at the priority projects identified through the SCTCA funding program, cycle 2. So we're doing that right now. That'll be available this summer. So we'll have some priorities that'll be lined up with funding as part of that process. So that'll be part of our near-term implementation plan. And we'll also be making some short-term policy recommendations as part of that as well. So we're looking to compile that in fall and winter and try and release it by the end of the year. So it'll be kind of a companion or a follow-up document to the CTP. And it's not going to be hundreds of pages like the CTP either. It'll be a shorter document. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. As I mentioned, final CTP is just going through final design right now. So it's done. It's just, we're making it pretty. And it'll be released as part of the packet for our June Board of Directors meeting. So yeah, a lot of work. We are proud of the plan, happy to get it out there, and looking forward to future plans as well. So happy to take any comments or questions. And I'll go ahead and get out of this too.
I have a question. Just because it's on my mind from the small operators discussion yesterday on the transit priority roadway assessment and the transit priority network work that's happening at MTC. Are we connecting the CTP projects to that effort? And I think, Dana, you may be involved in that. Like, I know that we've identified several transit system improvements that are corridor based on the bus system, and it would be great to connect what we have programmed in the CTP to that effort so that it's on the radar that those are some local priorities for transit priority corridors or emphasis corridors. So I'm not sure if we've had the opportunity to make that connection, but it might be worth doing from the standpoint of, like, you know, what are some action oriented things we can do to translate what's in the CTP to potential opportunities for funding or support from the region. So I was curious about that.
So all of the projects in the CTP feed directly into the Plan Bay Area or Regional Transportation Plan. So there's a connection there. I believe MTC ABAC are looking at that list as part of the TPN process, but Dana's closer to that. Maybe she...
Yeah, I think that it's not limited to, I mean, what goes into like the TPN is not limited to projects that have already been
Sure.
You know, documented as a vision or planned out in detail. So yes, I think it's the information for the TPNs coming from several different sources,
Yeah.
including CTPs and other approved plans, as well as priorities that are just expressed by the operator. So
And I know we've given some input, so that's great to hear. And we'll see the draft network they come up with, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities to then respond further. But okay, thanks for that.
And I'd also say that there are a number of projects in the CDP and the Regional Transportation Plan or Plan Bay Area that are pretty vague.
Yeah.
They're kind of programmatic and
Sure.
talking about different types of projects and not specific ones. So I think there's probably some room in there to implement some of the recommendations from the TPN process.
Yeah, because I think some of our local projects, I think if I recall, when they rolled up to the RTP last time, they became a little bit more vague and more programmatic, which is fine, for the purposes of the RTP. But yeah, anyway, we'll have a chance to look at how that's all been evaluated by MTC.
yeah, I assume there's some projects that kind of fall under some sort of like complete streets category that, could have a range of improvement. Really,
Oh, sure.
transit priority.
Great job. Yeah.
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 It is. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know.
You can, you have 6 months left before you start.
But soon, yeah.
We take a year or so.
We'll start asking for projects again, probably end of next year. So
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's fair. Great.
constant cycle.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Chris? Okay, moving on to item number 5, we have transit integration updates. So on the local bus operator integration realm, we've been highly focused on procurement for Sync Sonoma Transit and kind of refining the scope on that. So we'll have an announcement that goes along with the June Board of Directors packet on that as well. I don't think I have anything else major there. So I'll just, unless any of the offer. Okay, then let's move on to regional meetings report outs.
I can talk about R&M Council briefly. We met a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't a big meeting from the standpoint of action items, but just so folks know what was on that agenda, it was a review of the R&M work plan, which they do quarterly, and I've made a plug to some people. It's kind of nice to look at that work plan to see what's coming and where the staff are planning to focus their energy kind of over the coming quarter and year. I don't think there were any major surprises there, but it is kind of a useful document that's posted. And then there was, most of the discussion was around an assessment of the R&M framework that is required every 2 years. So this was sort of the first assessment of the overall framework for regional network management, from the committee structure to how the co-PM model that we've all experienced with MTC staff working with transit operator staff around specific initiatives. And it was a pretty interesting assessment. I think some of the high level recommendations coming out of it recommend the key ones related to finding a sustainable funding structure for R&M, because right now most of the funding is from one-time COVID money. Recommendation around integrating the Clipper executive board with the R&M council, so there just sort of be one regional body, and that's got some implications to it. And then, sort of a recommendation around trying to get better clarity between the various committees involved with R&M around what the major policy goals are and moving forward. And I think it's working pretty well, but there might be opportunities for additional clarity around those goals among the committee. So that's sort of a bureaucratic exercise, but it's important because R&M is, leading the charge on so many major initiatives around the region. Yeah, I think that was it. I will say we talked to Clipper recently, and I think things are moving. They are taking to the Clipper Executive Board in June, sort of a new decision on do we press go on bulk migration. They've migrated an insane number of cards just through this kind of messy organic process. It's like getting up close to 50% of transactions are in Clipper 2 between open loop, I mean, credit card taps, if you count those. It might only be 40%, but it's been climbing and climbing, and they're starting to transition like thousands and thousands of cards a day. So anyway, I think there's I don't know, 50-50. There's a possibility CEB will say, give the go ahead on bulk transition. Just FYI, because they send out those daily updates, but they're like epic. And so I just thought I'd offer that little bit of hopeful, great news.
Good news.
Yeah, it is good news.
Any other regional meetings to report out on? All right, then, let's move on to transit operator updates. So would you like to kick us off?
Sure. I guess it was last Friday. Wow. Last Friday, Smart had the groundbreaking event for our Healdsburg extension. Many of you were there, and it was really very fun and well attended, and just exciting to be up in the community and see the excitement for Smart coming to town. As far as ridership goes, we had a record month in April, thanks to the additional mascot service and an incredible day of ridership on Petaluma's Butter and Egg Days parade. That day we carried over 7,000 passengers on a Saturday. And in April we had just over 133,000 riders in the month. So we've been seeing our weekday ridership.
Is 7,000 a record for weekday even? Is it just a record?
We had one other it was nearly a record. We had one other day with 7,000, over 7,000 riders. I want to say, yeah, it was, yeah, the fair. Thanks.
Yeah.
He's still working for Smart.
Every day. For all the transit, all the time.
That's right.
I think we know, right?
So that was the only other day. But this was a record and not a record, but pretty significant considering there were fewer trips handling all of that ridership. Our weekday averages are now kind of hovering in the 5,200 to 5,300 average weekday riders, which is great to see. So we're just very encouraged to see ridership going up. And I think that's it for Smart.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few updates to share. One will be that our Butter and Eggs ridership decreased, which is good because they're riding Smart. So we're happy for that and happy to see that increase. And we've been sharing it with our city staff too. So it's exciting stuff. Always go to our Butter and Eggs event. All right, from Petaluma Transit, want to let you know we are scheduling to have a schedule change August 9th. So originally the schedule updates were provided on our April 6th council. Council suggested to go with some reductions. That was also my first day. So I am in full transparency. I asked to be able to stress test some of those ideas. So I've gotten clearance to reapproach my Transit Advisory Council or committee May 19th, and we'll be presenting some of my updated or staff updated suggestions. Now that time, hopefully we'll be able to move forward, but we do know right now, August 9th will be the date of the schedule change. We do know reductions will be happening, and we'll be letting everyone here know. We are, in terms of the Lumago pilot, in its current form of this, what I would call a premier service that is very fancy and exciting that everybody loves. We'll be wrapping that particular style of the pilot up. I am curious, as we kind of close up this pilot, and I'll kind of share what we will do moving forward, but something I do want to gather is what information do we need from this pilot, right? I have a lot of data in terms of where people are going, when they're traveling. We don't have the demographic data, so we're going to be doing some surveys, but would love to know if there's something in particular, you feel would be helpful from a microtransit pilot to understand. The nice thing about the VIA platform that we're using is from my past experience with other agencies, we tend to get a good survey response because the survey is embedded in the app, right? So somebody's already looking at their phone, they're already waiting for it, they see it, it's push, it's there. So I'm very hopeful we're going to get a high response rate, but as you know, we don't want to hit them a bunch of times. So if you have any suggestions on that, staff's on the line to take notes, or if you want to email those to me directly, anything you might want to know about. We are going to be changing the way that the microtransit pilot will cover some of the reductions. So after we discuss that with TAC, we're excited to have Go Sonoma funds to continue what I will not call lifeline service, but maybe making sure we're covering our entire city with our priority focusing on core service and connecting our community to smart and other transit options. So that's going to be our focus, is kind of right sizing the agency for what we can afford right now, and then creating a long-term plan. Between August 9th and January, when this new schedule comes out, we're also doing a robust campaign for customer comments because we really want to see what the impacts are of this. It's like a mini mascots, I guess, to a degree, right? One of the things I did, I was at an outreach event last night, and it was the first time I heard firsthand response from our residents about mascots, and that there is going to be a service hole. So we're trying to address that with the 101 and Petaluma Boulevard South. We're recognizing that some of our community members are using it to go to language schools or after school childcare that are off hours. So with this kind of campaign we're doing between August 9th and January, we know that these reductions are going to have impact. And so we're saying to the community, we want to hear the impact so that we can quickly pivot or start to pivot into what might be a better service for them. Let's see. I think that's all. We were going to get some new electric vans in about 4 weeks. I look forward to giving you more information on that. And I think that's all I have for now.
That's all. Yeah, I mean, your question about microtransit's really interesting. I'd like to give it some thought.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Send us.
tired of me saying
No.
this. Can you send us an email?
I think that's good.
Because I do think, I mean, even SCTA is fielding requests for
Right.
transit, and I'm often doing what I call microtransit therapy with cities, right?
Yes.
Explaining the pros and
Yes.
cons. And it would be really nice to have some data from your service. I mean, even things like average wait time, percentage of trips accommodated, demographics, yes. Yeah, any data we can get. I mean, I don't know if you have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
Or VIA can make a
Absolutely.
summary report for you of the service, that we could have available, but that would be really helpful because everyone's looked at Petaluma, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Petaluma's doing this thing. Why can't we have this?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
important.
Yeah. I think what my thought would be was I'll have my staff send out what we currently have, because we do have a lot of great data, right? On-offs, and that will give you a perception of what we have. And then from that, what would we want? And I am talking to VIA because as we transition this service, right? Microtransit is super flexible and super changeable, but it's confusing for the public when they see Luma go in one manifestation, right? It's like, that's what microtransit is it 15-minute wait times? That is not what microtransit always is. That's a premier version of microtransit. And so what I'm excited about after we wrap up this pilot is our ability to still use the microtransit platform, this for something very different that could be a plug-in for other uses. So I think it is exciting, scary, but I want to make sure, to your point, really to capture this data because this is a moment in time. So what I will do is have my team send out an email to y'all with what we have. And then if you can just respond, we'll even give you some of the questions our staff is considering so that you don't have to think of it all. And then we'll be happy to share all the results. And I'm going to say this, if you need more presenting or any information on microtransit specific, because of my experience, I'm happy to coordinate. And I know SMART has experience, but I think working together and combining all this would be really useful for the county.
Yeah, because I think going forward in Petaluma, you need to know ons and offs, right?
Right.
Like there's larger lessons that are
Much larger.
Yeah, one thing that I'll just put out there that we get asked about a lot is, paratransit eligible users on microtransit. So any data that you have from the pilot, on how many, riders,
Yeah.
were either, if they were requested through paratransit avenue or just served and are paratransit eligible users. So it'd be interesting to understand.
And I can't do too many spoilers till a TAC
Yeah.
presentation. I encourage you to check it out to hear all my crazy ideas on things that I think we can do along those lines. And again, looking at it with the lens of the entire county, how this could be used moving forward. And V has been a phenomenal partner in wanting to quickly pivot to make all of our dreams come true. So I'm excited to see what they provide us.
When is that talking?
Tuesday, the 19th. Yeah. Tune in.
Thank you. Sonoma County Transit. So let's see. Most fun thing is that we went to the Gillig factory yesterday. It's always the highlight of my year to do that. Let's see, some helpful takeaways. One interesting thing we learned was that because of the pivot in federal direction on EV vehicles, the lead time for non-electric vehicles, maybe you all know this, but I was pretty shocked, is now up to 2 years because so many states are now just going back to non-electric vehicles. And so that is a long time. In addition, the time period to get a quote, just a quote, is 6 months. So that's 2.5 years for math there, okay? Which is longer than most of our funding deadlines. I mean, we're in the process of getting many of our federal grants extended for another couple of years to purchase fixed route vehicles, and then this timeline will exceed that. So I don't know what that means. It was very fun to see all the buses on the line. We saw Marin Transit's buses coming out of the end of the pipeline, looking beautiful. It was a great moment.
That plane again. Pristine.
Yes, I took some pictures for them, and yeah, it was great when Charles said, "Look, no fare boxes." It's like, I know, right? Yeah, very exciting there. So I was a little jealous of that. Let's see. We are
Although because of the Clipper delay, we're
you know what? That's all gonna get sorted out.
6 more
Kathleen,
months.
okay? Yeah, it's fine. We really are about to initiate the public outreach process for our strategic plan. The website, gosh, it should be live today or tomorrow. So whenever it's ready, I'll send out a link, and it's going to have information on our public workshops that we're having in July. And also we have some surveys that will be both oriented to riders and just community stakeholders. And I will share those links with you as well. We are planning to do some service changes in August. I'm not sure what those will be yet. If there's any other news? Well, I guess there is. So we are in the final stages of our EV charging upgrade project. We've had PG&E at our office every day. Power was out all day yesterday. And I think they're working hard because our EV charging system should be up in a few weeks, just in time to receive our 7 new electric buses by the end of May. So we have a lot going on. And then once that's all ready, we're going to need to have some kind of ribbon cutting event with some big scissors. And so I'll let you all know when that is. But that's a big deal. I mean, that's I think a $2.5 million project. So it's been 3-4 years in the making with many delays. So we're excited to get it done. That's all.
Facility is we're taking our design contract to the board in June. We've got FTA, we got NEPA approval, which was a long awaited milestone that we needed to get through to move into this design phase. So we're really excited about getting that started. Still headed towards that 2030 opening.
We also have a workforce and childcare component of that grant, and we are gonna get approval for a childcare partner to expand childcare options in Marin County. I know that's super. That's amazing. That's great. Weird thing to have as a transit meeting, but they'll to expand in home-based childcare in Marin County, working with Marin Child Care Council. So we're excited about that. We did get our first electric paratransit vans just delivered in the last couple weeks also. So that was exciting. And yeah, our ridership continues kind of hovering around pre-pandemic, a little bit above pre-pandemic levels. So yeah, things are moving along.
Electric paratransit van, you said? What kind?
Same as our, they're the Ford. I think they're Ford.
Who does that vehicle ordering for you guys?
Alma.
Yeah. All right. Great, thank you.
Sure. Let's see. Our ridership was 127,000 in April, which is still a couple percentage points down from last year. That's kind of a trend from us that's continuing. It's just we're a little bit under last year's ridership. So we're keeping an eye on that. The new flyers are here, the 6 new flyers. So those are getting ready for service. I think there'll be updates at multiple TAC meetings until we really get them on the road, but getting close, we're getting all the technology integrated, and they look really nice. And we are auctioning really, really old vehicles right now, which is just a pleasure. We're the two 24-year-old Gilligs are actually going to auction. So that's exciting for me because I kept seeing them on the road and was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so but still running. So cheers, Gillig. So anyway, we got those getting off the property, which is exciting. We kicked off, at least internally, our short range transit plan update. We're just getting started ahead of the MTC timeframe because we do have some pretty significant on-time performance issues in the system we need to address, as well as wanting to do our follow-on work from Mascot. So the two real focus areas for this update are service reliability and smart connectivity. And we have some really fun ideas that should do a lot to address both of those. So we're vetting those operationally as well as fiscally. Always need one more bus than you have, right, for any transit plan. So we're not out in the public with that yet, but hopefully over the summer, we'll be beginning some public outreach. So I'll want to coordinate with you folks too, with your strategic plan, just to make sure we're not, muddying the waters, but I think you're ahead of us. So I think will all work out well. We probably will be making some adjustments in August, but for on-time performance, but some of the larger scale changes, I mean, we're not looking at a complete reworking of the system, but there are potential route adjustments. Those are going to take a bit longer. So it's going to be a bit of a phased approach for us, but probably some smaller scale, interline adjustments in August. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, Golden Gate.
Okay, I'm gonna start with ridership, but I also have a couple other items. So as always, I'm 2 months behind. So this is March data on a year-over-year basis. Bridge, we saw a 6% increase, bus a 7%, and then a big jump in ferry, we saw a 40% increase. We're attributing that to we served 5 baseball games, which was different from last year. We didn't serve any baseball games, and that included opening weekend in the last week of March. That's when gas prices started raising. So we're also attributing some of that increase to people shifting more of their commute trips over to ferry. And we also had just a good weather month, which always makes a difference on ferry. And then I had a couple other items. Given C2 kind of moving along at a bit of a steadier pace, we wanted to bring up the bus operators transfer agreement and see if anyone had interest in kind of getting that conversation back up and running, so we can get that squared away before, or at least in anticipation of bulk migration. See some head nodding.
That sounds good. I think I was supposed to schedule a meeting like 3 months ago, so thank you for flagging that. And David gave me a little bit of an out because of the Clipper delay, but now here we are. So that sounds great. Yeah. I'll reach out.
And then lastly, we were doing some field work at Copeland Street. So thank you, Maria, for getting our D Street bus pad installed. We're very excited about that. But we also noticed there is a like a monitor installed in like a mid block on Copeland, and we wanted to gauge if there was any interest in maybe trying to turn that into some real-time signage.
So we actually have some real-time signage ready with the GMV. So yeah, we can connect up on, because we haven't chosen those installation spots. So if you can send me an email to the team, we can talk about that. Great idea.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maria. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Alright, let's ask if there's any other transit operator updates. Okay. Well, then with that, any other business comments or announcements? All right, we can adjourn. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks.
Thank you.